An American tradition, like hot apple pie and front porch sitting. A generational heritage passed down from times where tools were made by hand and the fruit of the land was the local currency. It's a family tradition. We call it Stubblefield apple butter. Mr. and Mrs. Robert F. Stubblefield taught it to my grandmother, and my grandmother taught it to her daughters. It's a century-old tradition, and my grandmother and her sisters and my mother and my aunts passed it on to my family, and the tradition has become our own. Every year when the leaves change, we gather together and celebrate this time-honored tradition. Beautiful and natural as a glistening rose in the morning mist, and warm as the sun on the living room floor. Nothing goes together better than a nice warm slice of homemade bread and Stubblefield apple butter. Join us as we celebrate this wonderful tradition. Stubblefield apple butter, batch 2007. Grandma always taught us that Jonathan apples are best because of their tart flavor and good color. The night before the cooking, we gather and wash and slice these apples into quarters and they're cored. Boiled 5 to 10 minutes until they are soft enough to run through the Foley mill. Of course, nowadays we use the squeeze-o, which is much easier. This mixture is stored in any container except aluminum, which will ruin the taste and produce harmful acids in the apple butter. Meantime, a fire is kindled. Dry wood added at first to get the apple butter boiling, and then green wood should be added for a slow and steady heat. If the fire is too hot, the apple butter may get scorched and ruined, and it will ruin the whole batch. And this might also happen if it is not continuously stirred. Sugar must be added slowly so that it does not clump and stick to the kettle bottom, which would cause it to burn and scorch and ruin the whole batch. We stir continuously for hours and thoroughly, and we must make sure that the paddle scrapes across the entire bottom of the surface. If one spot is left to scorch, then the whole batch is ruined. Brock's Red Hots are added for seasoning and for beautiful red color. The paddle itself is made of walnut so that it doesn't add any taste to the apple butter. And the kettle is made of copper and holds about 15 gallons. That's about 3 bushels of apples and 30 pounds of sugar. 1 small box of cinnamon sticks is added for every 3 bushels. And in the end, this produces 40 to 45 quarts of yummy, warm apple butter. A good time is had by all. We always make a party of it. In years gone by, the Stubblefields used to have 4 or 5 kettles going at once. All the men and women would gather the day before to cut the apples and run them through the calendars and Foley mills. and all that yummy apple butter they'd sell for their church. Another part of the tradition, so it seems, is debating on when the apple butter is done and ready to be taken off the fire. Even my Grandma Dorf and her sister Dorothy, affectionately called Aunt Dot, used to debate. They used to watch for the big bubbles that form on top. My dad used to call them biscuits, said Aunt Dot. Then the apple butter is taste tested, and this is the final approval that is made before pulling it off the fire. The jars, already washed and cleaned and warmed so that they don't break when the apple butter is poured into them. An assembly line is formed. One pours the hot apple butter into the fresh, clean jars. Another wipes the jars and adds the lids, and another tightens the lids and cleans them again before they are boxed. In the end, it's a lot of hard work, but it's worth it. It's worth it to continue the tradition passed down to us. It's worth it to give this as a gift to those that follow us. It's worth it to share this tasty treat with our loved ones. As time goes on, the old ones pass on, and the new are born. But the tradition lives on, and it will live on, as long as I can be a part of it. So the next time you open that sweet and tart nectar and spread it over that fresh loaf of bread, consider the heritage that you are partaking of. Remember those that came before, and ponder those that will follow. I welcome you to participate in this Stubblefield tradition. In loving memory, I own Dorf.